Welcome to Into the Unknown. I'm your
More
host,
responsive
Catherine.
in dangerous
I've been a
situations.
paranormal investigator for
In the end.
14 years. When my dad passed away in 2010, I began experiencing some unusual things, which led me to become an active member in the paranormal community. In 2011, I helped found the National Paranormal Society and currently serve as a senior director overseeing two departments which cover investigation research, team resources, and photography. I have led 3 local paranormal teams and currently lead NPS of Texas. From 2011 to 2014, I was involved in the filming of NPS alone as the only female investigator on a team of 5. I have previously hosted 3 paranormal shows: Torching Hot Topics with Torch Paranormal, DNS Live with DNS Paranormal Crew, and NPS Focus, all hosted on the Para Encounters Network. The study of the paranormal is called parapsychology. During the show, we will cover ghosts and hauntings, haunted locations, aliens and UAPs, also known as UFOs and ufology, cryptozoology, demonology, ancient mysteries, and the occult. Within these areas, we focus on photography, science, Since this is a featured show on the Meet Me app, I will not be able to acknowledge your comments in real time or thank you individually for your gifts. But I will take a moment at the end of the show to say thank you and to give some shout outs. If you have questions or comments for me, please stay after the show. Please also remember to keep the comments respectful in the chat and towards myself and my guest. Those who cannot contain themselves will be escorted out of the stream. Now, if y'all are ready, let's go into the unknown. Looks like we're going to have interference on the show again tonight, and that's okay. We'll get through it. Hey, y'all, Kraken here, and you've just stepped back into the unknown. Your featured show here on the Meet Me app where we stir up the shadows, seek out the haunted, and dance right on the edge of the veil. We go live here every Sunday at 11 p.m. Eastern, and tonight we're cracking open the cursed. From haunted museums and possessed dolls to real-life collectors and fatal consequences, this one's not for the faint of heart. We're kicking things off with the latest paranormal news from around the globe, haunted headlines, spine-tingling sightings, and a few headlines you won't believe are real. Then it's time to put on your sixth sense to test the paranormal trivia. And if you've been paying attention to Annabelle's journey and the cursed objects we've covered lately, this is your time to shine. From there, we'll dive into this week's opening segment, Objects of Dread, including a cursed fedora that refuses to be destroyed, a camera that spreads its haunting through digital devices, and a Kentucky chest born from injustice and bloodshed. After that is a segment called Collectors of the Cursed, the real-life daredevils, investigators, and haunted hoarders who choose to live with the cursed. And finally, in our main segment tonight, we'll unravel the eerie timeline of Annabelle's Devils on the Run tour, New Orleans power outages, guest collapses in San Antonio, shadow figures and 911 failures in Gettysburg, and the sudden shocking death of Dan Rivera, longtime NESPR investigator and protege of Lorraine Warren, I'll get it, herself. We'll dig into the psychology of doll fear, the lore around Annabelle's containment, and the growing belief that something darker may have been unleashed or followed. So light your candles, charge your gear, and if you've ever scoffed at the idea of a haunted doll, after tonight, you may want to rethink that. This is Into the Unknown. Let's get haunted. All right, explorers of the eerie, it's time to flip on the spirit box and scan the global frequencies because the veil has been buzzing this week. Here's what's making headlines in the world of the weird tonight. We begin with a loss felt deeply in the paranormal community. Dan Rivera, a beloved investigator with NESPR and the key figure on the Devils on the Run tour featuring the infamous Annabelle doll, passed away suddenly in Gettysburg just moments after the team's final appearance. While the official cause of death was ruled natural, many believe the timing, combined with the wave of strange phenomena surrounding Annabelle, makes this more than just a tragic coincidence. Despite backlash and conspiracy theories swirling online, Nespor has confirmed that the tour will continue as planned, a choice they say honors Dan's legacy and his commitment to the Warrens' work. We're covering this in full a little bit later tonight, but in short, Annabelle isn't going back into her case just yet, and the shadows, well, they're still watching. Next up, a floating palm branch, actual picture, was caught on camera in Fresno. During a campaign walk, Fresno County Supervisor Luis Chavez recorded a bizarre clip showing a palm branch suspended in midair, drifting without any visible support. The footage made its way to Paranormal Caught on Camera, igniting debates online. Some claim it's evidence of an unseen entity or energy field. Others say it's a well-timed breeze or clever editing. Either way, it's a strange sight, and you guys know strange is our specialty here. Next up, a prophecy from a Japanese manga that predicted a megaquake in July 2025 had people on edge, especially when tremors actually struck the Tokara Islands just weeks later. While no catastrophic disaster occurred, the prophecy stirred social media fear and fueled questions about predictive intuition, mass consciousness, and whether some creators are tapping into more than just the imagination. Coincidence? Maybe. Precognition? That's the million-yen question. Now, let's shift to Utah because Skinwalker Ranch just got a whole lot slimier this week. In a recent episode of the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, the team drilled a second borehole in the same anomaly zone where strange readings, lost time events, and tech malfunctions have occurred. What did they find? More of that jelly-like substance, the same material they previously unearthed deep underground. With no clear biological or geological origin, the substance has baffled geologists and raised new questions about the interdimensional material, organic technology, or even living ground anomalies. And yes, EMF spikes and drone malfunctions occurred again during the dig. At this point, Skinwalker Ranch isn't just haunted, it's layered. And finally, what do you get when you take found footage horror franchise and put it on stage? Apparently, a hit show. The live theatrical version of Paranormal Activity premiered in Leeds, UK, and thanks to its sold-out run, it's now gearing up for a US tour this fall, with Chicago on the October lineup and London's West End to follow in December. Expect levitating chairs, jump scares, and maybe a few real spirits sleeping in backstage. So, what's the verdict, Night Owls? Are we drilling into portals, summoning the stage bound of cinema past, or are we just watching reality finally catch up to the weird? Let me know what story you're keeping your eye on. DM me on IG or hit me in the comments after the show. I want your theories. And if you're heading to see Annabelle in person this fall, send salt, send prayers, and send me some pictures. All right. The world's been busy stirring the shadows this week, from flickering lights to floating palm branches and Annabelle's tour shaking up entire cities. It's clear the veil's running really thin lately. But before we go any deeper into the darkness, let's test your sixth sense. It's time for our Paranormal Trivia Challenge. Feel free to take screenshots of the questions to refer back to during the show. Now, grab your salt, clear your mind, drop your answers in the chat as we go, because tonight's questions, they're cursed just right. Let's see who's got the brains to back up the bravado. All right, our question number one tonight. According to Ed and Lorraine Warren, what should never be done with Annabelle the doll? Number two, what reportedly happened to the 911 emergency system in Gettysburg during Annabelle's 2025 visit? Number three, what folklore mistake may have caused Sarah Woodruff and her children's spirits to become trapped in the Myrtles Plantation mirror? Number four, in what U.S. city did Annabelle make headlines again in 2025 after reportedly causing disturbances at a haunted location? Number five, what happened when someone tried to destroy the cursed 1940s fedora by burning it? Number six, Which haunted object in Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum did I feel drawn to during my visit? Number 7, why is Busby's stoop chair no longer allowed to be sat in at the museum? Number 8, what did Claudia from Pennsylvania name the room where she sealed her haunted Victorian doll? Number 9, what eerie figure appeared in every photo taken with the haunted 35mm camera from Japan? And number 10, what is one of the most common reasons collectors say they keep haunted objects? I'll be sharing the answers later in the show, so stay tuned, stay curious, and maybe throw a little bit of salt over your shoulder just in case. All right, you've heard the headlines and battled the trivia. Some of you may nail the trivia later, and others might be hexed by haunted doll energy. Either way, we're just scratching the surface. Coming up, we're cracking into the story everyone's whispering about, Annabelle. Yeah, that Annabelle. The doll that was never supposed to leave the Warrens' museum, and yet here she is on tour, stirring up chaos, and maybe even carrying something that shouldn't be on the road. This is where it gets dark. Stick around, we're digging deep. And just a reminder, you're watching Into the Unknown, your Sunday night dive into the strange, the haunted, and the unexplained. Live every week at 11 p.m. Eastern, only here on the Meet Me app. Now, let's get into tonight's opening segment. All right, we're going to dive deeper into the unsettling world of haunted objects. Because here's the thing. Annabelle might be the headliner right now, but she's far from the only cursed object with a track record of disaster. Across cultures and centuries, there have always been whispers, legends of relics, artifacts, and heirlooms that bring misfortune, illness, and even death to those who possess or provoke those. Some sit behind glass, some are buried underground, and some, they might still be hiding in plain sight. So let's take a little tour through the terrifying, shall we? We're going to start off with a mass-produced painting that lit up the tabloids, and not in a good way. In the 1980s, British newspapers began reporting a disturbing pattern, homes that had burned to the ground, and yet one object always survived untouched by the flames, a painting of a crying boy. Dozens of cases, different towns, different families, same painting, same outcome. Some blamed coincidence. Others said it was a curse. Firefighters allegedly refused to touch the artwork, and stories still circulate about bad luck that followed anyone who owned it. Sad eyes, energy that lingers. Sound familiar? Yeah, Annabelle's not the only one watching. Next up, let's head a little bit closer to home. Before there was Annabelle, there was Robert. Gifted to a young boy named Eugene Otto in the early 1900s, Robert was no ordinary doll. Neighbors swore they saw him move. Eugene blamed broken objects, fits of rage, even family conflict on the doll. Even as an adult, Otto kept Robert, gave him his own room, spoke to him like a person. Today, Robert resides in a museum in Key West, and visitors are warned, ask permission before taking his picture. Don't? You might end up writing an apology letter to be placed on the wall with the rest, begging him to lift the curse. Moving on from dolls to something deceptively simple, a ring. This artifact, named after the demon Belphegor, is said to have caused obsession, madness, and death in those who wore it. According to lore, it was unearthed during a 19th century European excavation and passed between collectors, many of whom died under suspicious or violent circumstances. One woman claimed the ring whispered to her in her sleep. Another began to experience vivid hallucinations and ultimately vanished. The ring eventually disappeared from circulation, rumored to be sealed in a private collection or hidden away behind multiple wards. The moral here, not all cursed objects are big. Some, they slip right onto your finger. This next one isn't a doll or a ring, it's furniture. But don't let that fool you. In 1987, the Tallman family purchased a secondhand bunk bed. Within weeks, their home turned into a battleground of the paranormal. Unexplained illnesses, radio interference, shadow figures, an red-eyed entity that was seen in the garage. Even a family member sleeping in the bed reported waking up to an unseen force shaking it violently. The bed was burned by the family, and to this day, it remains one of the only objects believed to carry a location-bound curse into an otherwise quiet house. Now to Japan, where haunted dolls come with their own chilling traditions. Okiku was a beautiful porcelain doll gifted to a young girl who died tragically in the early 20th century. Her family kept the doll as a memorial, but then they noticed something strange. The doll's hair began to grow. It had been cut short when gifted, but over time it lengthened, like a living child's would. Now kept in the Manji temple, monks claim they must regularly trim her hair. Scientists who tested the strands confirmed it's human. And the temple, it believes the spirit of a little girl lives on inside the doll. Now, let's talk elegance with an edge. This 15th century silver vase was supposedly gifted to a bride on her wedding night, only for her to die that very evening. Everyone who inherited the vase met a similar fate: sudden illness, freak accidents, unexplained deaths. Eventually, it was buried with a warning: beware, this vase brings death. Despite that, it resurfaced in the 1980s, auctioned off without explanation, and more deaths followed. Where is it now? No one really knows. Some say it was reburied in secret. Others believe it's locked away by a collector who wants the legend, but not the consequences. At the heart of the notoriously haunted Myrtle's Plantation, a place that is already steeped in ghostly lore, sits a mirror that guests often refuse to face alone. It's not just antique, it's watching. Local legend says the souls of Sarah Woodruff and her children, poisoned in the 1800s, are trapped inside, victims of a tragedy woven with betrayal, slavery, and sorrow. But what sealed their fate wasn't just the poison, it was the mirror. In Southern mourning tradition, mirrors were covered after death to prevent souls from becoming trapped. This one wasn't. And ever since, small smudged handprints reappear no matter how often it's cleaned. Faces hover in the corners of the glass when no one is near. Reflections twist, heads vanish, shadows appear, eyes blink that shouldn't. Some believe the mirror has become a portal. Others call it a spiritual echo chamber, one that doesn't just reflect the living, it holds on to the dead. Because mirrors are memory traps. They store pain, longing, unfinished business. So the question is, if grief can stain glass, what happens when we leave the door open too long? They say diamonds are forever, but some carry more than sparkle. This one carries a curse. Known as the Eye of Brahma, this 67-carat black diamond was allegedly pried from the eye of a sacred Hindu statue in the early 1800s. An act not just of theft, but spiritual violation. And from that moment on, misfortune followed. Passed into the hands of the Russian aristocracy, it dazzled, then destroyed. Fortunes collapsed, families fractured, and at least 2 owners died by suicide, leaping to their deaths under mysterious circumstances. Eventually, the diamond was recut and renamed, as if reshaping it could erase its past. It's been displayed, locked away, and admired. But those who linger near it report a strange heaviness, like the stone is remembering, because gems do hold energy: grief, greed, betrayal, ritual. To some, it's just a dark jewel. To others, a stolen eye that still watches and waits, because some beauty was never meant to be possessed. And when you take that what was sacred, the price is never just monetary. Now, this one glows with an impossible blue, mesmerizing, flawless, and worth $250 million. And yet, the Hope Diamond is known more for its curse than its carats. The legend begins in India, where it was said to have been pried from the eye of a sacred statue of Sita, an act of desecration that, according to myth, unleashed centuries of disaster. From there it passed into royal hands, and those hands rarely stayed clean or alive. King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette both wore it. Both were beheaded. Princess de Lamballe, a rumored temporary wearer, was savagely murdered. Other owners met ruin, suicide, madness, execution, downfall. Even after its donation to the Smithsonian in 1958, strange activity persisted. Lights flickered, equipment failed, cold spots hovered near the exhibit. Visitors reported feeling drained, watched, and even sick. So, is it truly cursed, or is this the power of belief, a psychological echo amplified by centuries of fear and folklore? Because sometimes it's not just the object, it's what we imprint onto it. And with the Hope Diamond, soaked in betrayal, ambition, and royal blood, that imprint runs deep. Admire it, photograph it. But if you believe in energetic memory, maybe just don't wish for one like it. But not all cursed objects come with legends. Some slip quietly through estate sales and flea markets. Too haunted to destroy, too dangerous to display. This one, a battered 1940s fedora. No name, no story, just a hat, until someone wore it. Then things changed. It began with unease, irritability, a sense of being watched from the inside. Owners reported blackouts, sudden rage, and dreams of a shadowy figure wearing the same hat. EMF spikes followed the fedora. Psychics called it a thought parasite. One investigator wore it during a case. He ended the night screaming, convinced something had crawled into his skull. Attempts to destroy it failed. It was tossed into a bonfire, only to return days later, soaked and stinking of sulfur. It was buried in a cemetery, only to be dug up by dogs hours later. A priest tried an exorcism on it and collapsed mid-ritual. Eventually, the hat was sealed, lead-lined, mirrored, padlocked. Its last known owner hasn't been seen publicly since. Some say it was worn during a ritual. Others believe it hosts an entity that bonds with the mind, not the object. Either way, if you find an old fedora hat that gives you the chills, don't put it on. And whatever you do, don't look in the mirror while holding it. But not all curses come from demons. Some are born of rage, injustice, and blood unpaid. This simple 19th century chest, handcrafted in Kentucky, belonged to Jacob Cooley, a wealthy man who ordered an enslaved man named Hosea to build it. Hosea completed the task and was brutally beaten for it. But the story didn't end there. According to the legend, a conjure woman, a practitioner of African American folk magic, placed a curse on the chest, not to punish Cooley, but to haunt his bloodline. Over 16 deaths followed, spanning generations. Mysterious fevers, sudden illnesses, and infants dying hours after the chest was moved into their rooms. Each tragedy reawakened the curse. Some family members tied blessings to it. Others tried to hide it. One even commissioned a counterspell, placing a charm inside the chest to seal the energy. It didn't work. Eventually, the chest was donated to the Kentucky History Museum, where it remains today. Staff wear gloves. Visitors are warned not to touch it. Still, some people report a heaviness and a sorrow that clings. This isn't a possession, it's a legacy. Not haunted by a ghost, but saturated in pain. Some objects remember. This one demands repayment. Now, this looked like an ordinary used 35mm camera that was snagged at a Tokyo flea market. Nothing special, just a bargain, until the film was developed. Every photo, regardless of angle, lighting, or subject, had one thing in common: a pale woman lurking in the background. Near a window, behind a door, always watching, always blurred, as if the lens had captured something it wasn't supposed to. At first, the owner blamed damaged film, but the pattern didn't break. Friends borrowed the camera, same results. Then things escalated. Light bulbs exploded when the camera was nearby. Shadows darted across walls, fast and untraceable. The photographer grew sick. Then another. Dreams turned dark. Always the same woman, face pressed into the glass, breathing, waiting. The camera was finally smashed, discarded, but the woman didn't leave. Now she appeared in digital photos, on smartphones and mirrors, reflected in devices she never even touched. Because some attachments don't need the object, they need attention, recognition. And once she knows you've seen her, she's already in the frame. So next time you scroll through your gallery, look twice. She might already be behind you. It sits in silence now, bolted on a high wall, far from curious hands and foolish stares. But this isn't just furniture, it's a warning with legs. The legend begins in 18th century England with Thomas Busby, a convicted murderer. As he was dragged from his favorite pub to the gallows, he cursed his chair, this one seen here. "May death come to anyone who sits here after me." At first, no one took it seriously. But then, people started dying. World War II soldiers who sat in it never came back from battle. Construction workers who took a break in the chair died in freak accidents, falls, collapses, machinery failures. One man had a pint in the chair, drove off, and never made it home. Eventually, the pattern became impossible to ignore. The chair was donated to the Thirsk Museum, but not just displayed. It was mounted 6 feet off the ground, permanently out of reach. No one has sat in it since. But some say you can still feel it. Stand too close and the air grows heavy. Your stomach turns. Something ancient in your instinct whispers, don't. Because maybe it's not just a curse. Maybe it's a death wish, still echoing through oak and iron. Some objects demand respect. This one, obedience. And it's waiting for the next fool to forget. Now, of course, we can't skip the infamous Dybbuk box. Said to be a vessel for a malevolent spirit, a Dybbuk, it gained widespread notoriety in the 2000s after being listed on eBay with a warning, do not open. Owners reported horrific nightmares, electrical malfunctions, hair loss, shadow figures, and overpowering smells of ammonia and jasmine. Eventually acquired by Zach Bagans, the box now sits sealed inside his Las Vegas museum. And even skeptics report feeling drained, dizzy, or overwhelmed in its presence. Some believe just hearing about it too often can trigger paranormal activity. So, you've been warned. And down the hall from the Dybbuk box sits Lily. Long dark hair, porcelain skin, blank watching eyes. Lily was donated by a paranormal team after too many of their guests reported nausea, dread, or feeling followed after being near her. Some saw her expression change. Some claim she whispered their name. Lily now rests in her own sealed case. And while she doesn't have the notoriety of Annabelle, investigators say her energy is deeper. She doesn't scream. She stares. Quiet. Constant. Like she's waiting. So let's circle back. Why does this keep happening? Why do certain objects seem to carry something more than just wood, paint, or porcelain? Is it our energy that gives them power? Or is it something else attaching to them, using them as anchors, as bait? Some other possibilities include energy imprinting such as trauma, ritual, obsession, human emotional binds. Spiritual attachment, spirits anchored to familiar forms, worn, touched, adored. Demonic opportunism, inhuman forces seek vessels, especially ones that attract attention. Belief is battery. The more fear and legend we feed an object, the stronger its field becomes. Different continents, different centuries, same eerie energy. And maybe that's the most disturbing part. Because if it was just one story, one object, one haunting, we could explain it away. But it's not. And some of the most dangerous items haven't even been found yet. In the end, haunted objects aren't just spooky props. They're emotional leftovers. Grief, rage, faith, betrayal. Captured in things we keep. And when we disturb them, parade them, profit off their pain, we may not just be moving the object, we may be moving what's bound to it. So the next time you're at an estate sale or you feel drawn to something at an antique store, a mirror that feels cold to the touch, a doll that gives you chills, a ring that just calls to you, trust your gut, say a prayer, and maybe, just maybe, don't take it home. So is it curiosity that drives us towards the unknown or the illusion of control? Because tonight isn't just about a doll behind glass, it's about what happens when we ignore the warnings and chase the thrill anyway. Before we dive into the full breakdown of Annabelle's tour of New Orleans, San Antonio, Gettysburg, and beyond, I want to take a moment to shout out our true MVPs of the night. Our top 3 gifters for the night are at number 3, Rocker Rebel, at number 2, RS Rob, and at number 1, I love you, Rosie. You guys, thanks for the gifts tonight. Thanks for being here. Make sure and drop them a fave, show them some love, and keep those ghostly gifts flying. You're watching Into the Unknown every Sunday here on the Meet Me app at 11 p.m. Eastern. So let's get into our next segment here. Some people run from haunted objects. Others, well, they collect them. We've heard the warnings. Don't take it home. Don't touch the case. Don't break the seal. But there's a select group of people who do it anyway. Not out of ignorance, but intention. They take cursed dolls, possessed paintings, spiritually volatile artifacts, and objects shrouded in fear and folklore and make them a part of their daily lives. Why? Well, that's what we're going to dive into tonight in this next segment, Collectors of the Cursed. The real-life guardians, thrill seekers, and spiritual daredevils who open their doors to darkness and live with the consequences. So let's set the record straight. Haunted relics aren't a modern trend. From ancient Rome to feudal Japan, objects were believed to hold energy, especially those involved in trauma, ritual, or powerful emotion. Items passed down after wars, deaths, or sacred rites were often stored with care or fear. Some cultures even performed burial rites for items believed to house spirits. In Thailand, dolls called Lukthet, angel children, are fed, clothed, and honored as spiritual companions. In Eastern Europe, protective amulets were buried at thresholds to trap spirits trying to enter a home. In parts of Africa, sacred objects called ninski were believed to contain souls capable of healing or harming. So the idea of keeping spiritually potent objects isn't new. What's new is doing it on purpose. So, when it comes to haunted relics, few names carry as much weight and warning as John Zaffis. Often referred to as the godfather of cursed object collection, Zaffis is more than legacy. He's a living archive of spiritual warfare, paranormal preservation, and old school fieldwork done with reverence, not spectacle. Nephew of Ed and Lorraine Warren, John didn't just inherit their respect for the paranormal. He inherited their belief system, their experience, and their burden. Zaffis once said, "Objects can be haunted, spirits can attach, and containment isn't a choice, it's protection." Over decades of work, Zaffis became the go-to cleanup crew for exorcisms, clearings, and botched amateur investigations. He steps in when something goes wrong, when the house has been blessed but the scratching returns, when the priest leaves and the shadows stay, and when the source turns out to be an object, that object goes to him. Zaffis established the Paranormal and Demonology Research Society of New England as a secure holding site for spiritually volatile artifacts, items too dangerous to destroy and too active to ignore. It's not open to the public, there's no gift shop, there's no flashing neon sign that says, "Come see the cursed." Instead, there are shelves lined with relics of pain. A chalice used in a black mass, still wrapped in the original ritual cloth, now encased in glass after causing night terrors and spontaneous nosebleed in its last home. A wooden idol recovered from a desecrated altar site. Those who touched it without gloves experienced violent nausea and stabbing headaches behind the eyes. A set of antique rosary beads tied to a possession case, scorched at the center despite no physical fire. A psychic who held them passed out instantly, muttering, "You don't belong here." Dozens and dozens of dolls. One blinks without mechanical parts. Another has been caught turning its head in a sealed case. And one, linked to violent poltergeist activity, is kept inside a triple locked cabinet in a salt lined chamber. Each item is tagged with its origin, spiritual classification, and handling instructions, because this isn't about fascination, it's about containment. These aren't trophies, Zaffis says, they're spiritual landmines. You don't parade them, you pray over them. Zaffis treats each item like an unexploded IED, spiritual ordnance that requires custom disarming. He's known to say, different spirits require different locks. So his methods blend Catholicism, Wicca, Kabbalah, indigenous practice, hoodoo, and old school paranormal technique. Step 1 is spiritual identification. Is it a human spirit, an elemental, a demonic attachment, a ritual-based curse? Step 2 involves cleansing and binding. Zaffis takes into consideration the following: Catholic exorcism or deliverance rites, Wiccan banishment and salt circles, indigenous smoke ceremonies and prayer bundles, hoodoo floor washes or mojo bags, and finally, mirror sealing and obsidian lining. Step 3 is physical containment. Mirrors are sealed in obsidian-lined boxes. Violent artifacts are double-cased and buried in protective symbols. Dolls are locked in mirror cabinets to reflect energy back onto themselves. Zaffis understands the human side of haunted objects, that some artifacts don't affect the space, they affect the people. Some trigger ancestral trauma, some amplify existing grief. He's seen hardened skeptics grow nauseous, experienced investigators collapse, guests cry without knowing why. That's why he doesn't open his museum, not out of secrecy, out of compassion and caution. He once said, "I'm not afraid of the spirits. I'm afraid of the people who think they're stronger than them." Many of the artifacts that once lived in Ed and Lorraine Warren's occult museum were curated by John after Ed's passing and Lorraine's decline. He was trained to contain Annabelle. He's seen the ripple effects of haunted objects that weren't respected and the damage that follows thrill seekers who don't know what they're touching. They are collectors, they are content creators, and then there are caretakers. John, John Zaffis is the vault, the last stop before something truly dark escapes again. Because when an object holds grief, blood, or rage, when it becomes more than just a thing, you don't display it, you contain it, you bless it, and you never ever forget what it's capable of. So if John Zaffis is the vault, then Zach Bagans is the stage. Famous for his work on ghost adventures and known for the paranormal world for his bold, unapologetic style, Zach has curated one of the most spiritually volatile spaces in America, the Haunted Museum in Las Vegas. But don't let the neon lights and velvet ropes fool you. What lives behind those walls isn't entertainment, it's energy. Contained, yes, but barely. You've seen the headlines, you've heard the whispered warnings. There are artifacts in that museum that watch you back, such as the Dybbuk box, often called the most haunted object in the world, sealed, surrounded by salt, blessed repeatedly. Even skeptics report feeling sick near it. Visitors faint, electronics fail, and when it was briefly opened during a special exhibit, lights burst and energy surged. Then you have the Devil's Rocking Chair, tied to the infamous Glatzel exorcism, the very case that inspired The Conjuring 3. People have seen the chair move on its own, some feel pushed. One staff member quit after repeated nightmares and scratches. Then we have Peggy the doll. So energetically volatile, she's kept behind glass in her own room. Just looking at her picture online has caused nausea, migraines, and nosebleeds. Multiple guests have collapsed within minutes of entering the room. And then we have Lily, a vintage spirit vessel said to whisper names, follow guests with her eyes, and emit an aura of maternal energy twisted just slightly wrong. Not malevolent, but unnerving. But the Haunted Museum is more than a showcase. It's a ritual in architecture. Each room has its own energetic ecosystem. Curtained doorways, red lit altars, trigger objects waiting to engage, spirits bound to spaces, objects bound to each other. Holy water offered at the entrance, not as theater, but as protocol. Every door you step through is a test of nerve and intention. I've been there twice, and let me be clear. What I felt inside that building wasn't staged. It wasn't suggestion. It was presence. Just outside of Peggy's room, I saw it, a shadow figure. Tall, still, watching. It didn't move. It didn't need to. The weight of it pressed into the air like humidity before a storm. I stood frozen, my body reacting before my brain could rationalize. Peggy herself didn't scream evil. She radiated pressure, psychic gravity, as if she was scanning you, judging if you were safe to pass. And then there was the Dybbuk box. I didn't just look at it. I circled it, watched it, felt pulled toward it. My attention wouldn't leave, like I was caught in a loop that wasn't mine, as if the space around it bent time or awareness. I felt entranced, like something else was holding the reins. And the basement? That wasn't cold from the AC. It was cold from something else. The kind of cold that makes your breath catch, not on your skin, but in your gut. The kind of cold that feels aware. The moment I descended those stairs, I knew I wasn't the only one down there. It didn't feel like fear. It felt like observation. The air was thick, like it remembered everyone who had entered and decided whether they left whole. Those weren't jump scares or special effects. Those were encounters. Some criticize Zach for dramatics, for putting haunted artifacts on display, for monetizing fear. But here's the thing. He never pretends those things aren't safe. He treats them with ritual, with real spiritual advisors. He doesn't promise protection. He offers warning. Where Zaffis locks the door, Zach dares you to open it. But only a fool walks in unguarded. So when people say haunted objects aren't real, that curses are just coincidence, I invite them to stand alone in that basement, to lock eyes with Peggy, to approach the Dybbuk box, and to just try to stay completely calm. Because some things aren't just haunted, they're charged with memory, with ritual, with pain. And in Zach's museum, they're not waiting for belief, they're waiting for attention. Now, of course, not all collectors are public. Some of the most compelling keepers of cursed relics are quiet, everyday folks. Teachers, antique dealers, empaths, investigators. People who didn't mean to start collecting until the objects found them. Let's look at Claudia from Pennsylvania. She bought a porcelain doll at a barn auction. It started moving around the house, playing music at night, whispering to her grandson. She didn't banish it, she gave it a room called the nursery and included rosaries and a salt circle around it. I don't fear her, I respect her, she said. She's here, so I gave her a space. How about Mark in Arizona who inherited a World War II knife? Rage attacks, drowning nightmares, growling in his sleep. A medium told him the knife was blood-bound. Now it's buried in salt, wrapped in lead, and hidden in the wall. Or what about the haunted teddy here in Texas? Recovered from a fire site smelling like ash and rose petals. Weeks later, it started leaking smoke from its nose in daylight. It's now sealed in resin, and still it fogs from the inside. Excuse me. Why do people keep these objects? The reasons vary and often overlap. For some, it's about control. They believe it's safer to house a haunted item than to let it roam unchecked in the world. Others are driven by curiosity. They want to see what happens when they interact with it. Then there are those who feel a deep sense of responsibility, asking themselves, if not me, then who? Some feel inexplicable calling, as if the object chose them rather than the other way around. In other cases, it's trauma bonding. They connect with the residual energy, pain, or history the object carries. And of course, there's the undeniable draw of profit and popularity, because haunted sells, especially online. But it's not all intrigue and Instagram. The risks are real. Every collector reports side effects, some minor, some devastating, such as sudden illness, electrical failure, sleep paralysis, intrusive thoughts, animal behavior shifts, shadowy figures in dreams, and yes, sometimes death. Some tried to get rid of their objects, but the curse didn't leave with it. Now, let's talk about you. Would you keep a haunted object if it meant keeping others safe? Have you ever bought something secondhand that just felt off? Ever take a picture and spot something no one remembers seeing there? Collecting haunted objects isn't just curiosity, it's a contract. You're not just bringing home an artifact, you're bringing home its memory, its trauma, its teeth. So next time you're at an estate sale and find a porcelain doll that's just a little too lifelike or a mirror that always feels cold, ask yourself, is this a treasure or a trap disguised as nostalgia? Because some things weren't meant to be owned, and some spirits, they're still looking for a way out. So, something shifted in Gettysburg, a surge in activity, a blackout of emergency systems, and then the heartbreaking loss of Dan Rivera, an investigator trained by the Warrens themselves. His passing wasn't just personal, it shook the field. Because when Annabelle arrived in Gettysburg, things didn't just get eerie, they got dangerous. So now we ask, was something following them? Or did Gettysburg, already soaked in blood and spirit, awaken something darker? Coming up next, we're diving headfirst into the fear behind the fear, the psychology of doll terror, the Warrens' most urgent warnings, and the theories no one wants to speak above a whisper. You're watching Into the Unknown, your Sunday night dose of haunted headlines, cursed truths, and unfiltered field reports. Stay right there because the veil, it's more than thinning now. It's opening. So, before Annabelle was locked in a glass case and labeled with warnings, she was just a gift. A second-hand Raggedy Ann doll picked up by a mother in 1970 and given to her daughter Donna, a nursing student in Hartford, Connecticut. At first, it was harmless. Donna and her roommate Angie found the doll moved slightly between rooms. Nothing too strange. But soon it escalated. They'd leave Annabelle on the couch and come home to find her standing upright in a different room, kneeling on a chair, or slumped behind closed doors. Then came the notes. Small pieces of parchment paper appearing around the apartment with childlike handwriting that said, "Help me, help Lou." Lou, a friend of Donna's, was one of the first to feel something off. He once woke from sleep paralyzed, only to see Annabelle at the foot of his bed, crawling toward him. Another time, after investigating strange noises, he felt slashed across the chest. Deep, bloody claw marks appeared out of nowhere. Desperate for answers, the girls contacted a medium who claimed the spirit of a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins was attached to the doll. She said she was lonely and meant no harm. Donna and Angie, moved by sympathy, gave her permission to stay. That's when things got worse. Objects flew, lights flickered, and the energy turned violent. That's when Ed and Lorraine Warren were called in, and they didn't mince words. "This is not a child," Ed warned. "This is an inhuman spirit using the doll as a puppet." According to the Warrens, demons don't possess objects, they manipulate them to gain trust. Annabelle was never the spirit of a lost girl. She was bait. And the longer she stayed, the closer she came to achieving her goal: human possession. The Warrens removed the doll immediately. During the drive, their car swerved violently and the brakes failed until Ed doused the doll with holy water. Eventually, they locked Annabelle in a wooden glass case at their occult museum in Monroe, Connecticut, blessed regularly by a priest, but even then, her reach continued. One man laughed at her and banged on the case, mocking her power. He died in a motorcycle crash hours later. His girlfriend survived and said they were laughing about the doll just before the wreck. And now, decades later, Annabelle's out of the case again. And strange things are already happening because Annabelle doesn't need belief. She just needs attention. And once she has it, she doesn't let go. They said she should never leave the museum. They warned that disturbing her would only invite darkness. And yet, she's out on tour. And wherever she goes, the shadows follow her. You know her name. You've seen her behind glass. And if you're like most people, you wouldn't dare share a room with her. Annabelle, the so-called most haunted doll in the world. Tonight we're unraveling the growing unease surrounded by Annabelle the doll's tour appearances across the U.S. And trust me, this isn't just museum drama. We're talking power outages, 911 systems crashings, fatal accidents, unexplained physical reactions, and escalating paranormal activity in places she's visited. Coincidence? Maybe. But in the paranormal world, we know better. For decades, Annabelle sat sealed behind sacred glass in the Warrens Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut, blessed regularly by a priest and surrounded by dire warnings. Do not touch, do not taunt, do not open the case. A bold sign on her display reads, positively, do not open. It wasn't for show. It was a spiritual boundary, one Ed and Lorraine Warren believed should never be crossed. They believed Annabelle wasn't simply haunted by a restless soul. She was a conduit, a vessel for something inhumane, demonic, manipulative, an entity that doesn't simply observe, but attaches, feeds, and waits. However, when the museum closed its doors to the public, Tony Spera, the Warren son-in-law and the current head of Nesper, made a controversial decision to take Annabelle on the road. A 2025 traveling lecture and artifact exhibition called the Devils on the Run Tour. Some viewed it as a rare opportunity, others a very bad idea. And now it's starting to look like the others may have been right. The Devils on the Run tour features haunted relics from the Warrens' collection, objects with long histories of curses, attachments, and documented phenomena. But none of them draw crowds quite like Annabelle. And from her very first stop, the warning signs were impossible to ignore. Annabelle debuted in New Orleans, a city already pulsing with supernatural tension. It's a place built on ritual, bloodlines, and unquiet spirits. But when Annabelle arrived, something shifted. Power surges and outages hit the venue before the exhibit even opened. A guest fell into a trance-like state and had to be escorted out. 2 separate fender benders happened on the same block, both involving attendees. Neither driver could explain what happened. Elsewhere in the city, a fire broke out at the historic Nottoway Plantation, not far from the exhibit site. No clear cause. Simultaneously, a local prison was forced into lockdown after electrical grid surges disrupted security systems. And after Annabelle left, a well-known local medium, someone seasoned, skeptical, and respected, reported recurring nightmares. She described being stalked in her dreams by a shadowy female figure whispering in an unidentified language. She hasn't investigated since. Annabelle's next appearance was in San Antonio, Texas, another deeply haunted city. Guests reported intense nausea, vertigo, and sudden headaches while in the same room as the doll. Electronics failed. Phones, spirit boxes, and recorders shut down entirely. A woman collapsed and was rushed to a hospital. One attendee described feeling like a weight was sitting on her chest, while a local investigator claimed, "I felt like something was staring through my skull." And perhaps most disturbing, video captured Annabelle's hand, previously resting in her lap, shifted slightly between still shots. No one touched the case. Tony Spera denied any movement, but many in attendance left shaken and swore they would never come back. And then came Gettysburg. From July 11th through the 13th, the tour set up at the historic Soldiers National Orphanage, a place already known for sorrow, trauma, and spiritual unrest. But when Annabelle entered the building, things intensified. Guests and staff began reporting shadow figures, cold spots, disembodied whispers, and a heavy, almost choking atmosphere. Paranormal investigators noticed spikes in EMF activity and claimed the building felt alive. One described the energy as something ancient and angry had just woke up. Then came the 911 outage. For hours, the local emergency system failed without explanation. And then, just blocks from the event, a fatal car crash. But nothing compared to what happened next. Last Sunday, July 13th, tragedy struck the tour. Dan Rivera, Nesper's lead investigator, was found dead in his hotel room. Dan wasn't just part of the team, he was its core. An Army veteran, a family man, a disciplined paranormal investigator, Dan had worked alongside Tony Spira for years. He trained under Lorraine herself and was specifically trained to handle Annabelle, not just physically, but spiritually. He understood the protocols, the risk, and the responsibility. He was skeptical of dramatics, grounded in spiritual protection, and deeply committed to educating the public. I found this TikTok video showing Dan handling Annabelle with proper protections in place. No fear, no fanfare, just focused, respectful containment. It's a powerful reminder of how seriously he took the work.
In the name of Jesus Christ, Lord, protect us from any evil, inhuman, or demonic entities that may surround this or infuse in this doll. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. I'm going to open up the case. You're going to quickly, Dan. I mean quick. Grab it and put it in. And just close it up fast. Close it up fast. That's good, Dad. That's good. That's all right. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Dan? Let me see your hands again. Okay.
In interviews, Dan remained calm, even when talking about Annabelle. He once said, "The doll was never missing, and she was never alone." He was the protector behind the warnings, the steady voice behind the tour. His cause of death was listed as natural, but the timing, after a weekend of spikes, surges, and unexplained disturbances, shook the paranormal world. Following the sudden passing of paranormal investigator Dan Rivera during Annabelle's tour, Zach Bagans opened up about his own frightening experience with the doll, which resurfaced as Rivera's death reignited public concern. Zach revealed that when he first investigated Annabelle back in 2017, he was deeply affected, so much so that he actually touched the doll, despite the owner's objections. He described feeling overwhelmed by its layered energies. The dark entity he believes is attached, residual energy from the Warren Occult Museum, and even the media frenzy surrounding Annabelle's fame. Zach shared that during the investigation, his team captured disturbing spirit box messages and SLS camera evidence, while he personally felt freezing cold, emotional distress, and an unexplainable compulsion to connect with the object. In response to Rivera's passing, Zach expressed deep sorrow, sending thoughts and prayers to his family, while urging fans and fellow investigators to remember Rivera's spirit and not to leap to supernatural conclusions. He stressed that, despite eerie timing, authorities have reported no signs of foul play. You can read that full article on usmagazine.com. But let's pull back. Why are we so afraid of dolls? The term is pedophobia, fear of human-like figures that aren't fully human. We covered this more in depth in episode 46, but it comes from the uncanny valley, that deep discomfort we feel when something is just close enough to human, but not quite right. Porcelain skin, glass eyes that never blink, limbs that dangle just wrong. Some people feel mild unease. Others feel panic, revulsion, terror. But with Annabelle, it's not just about how she looks, it's about what she carries. Decades of alleged possessions, violent incidents, accidents, and deaths. People claim the energy surrounding her affects them physically, sometimes just from seeing her photo. Whether she's a true vessel or not, the fear, the projection, and the energy she attracts is very, very real. The Warrens weren't vague. They believed Annabelle was attached to something inhuman, a spirit that feeds on attention, manipulates fear, and uses innocence as camouflage. They warned, do not touch, do not taunt, do not remove her from sacred containment. And those who didn't listen, they paid for it. One priest mocked her and later suffered a near fatal motorcycle crash. Visitors who tapped on the case or mocked the warnings reported illnesses, nightmares, and accidents. This isn't folklore, this is documented pattern. Now she's out again with thousands of eyes, thoughts, emotions, and energies fixed on her. And the Warrens' warning, it still echoes. But what if this just isn't about Annabelle? Some believe removing her from her case didn't just release old energy, it signaled new ones. The tour may have acted like a beacon, drawn in spirits, parasites, or worse. Some theorists suggest the activity in Gettysburg wasn't caused by Annabelle, but by something she brought with her. That the attention is feeding new entities, drawn by obsession and fear. And maybe the original demonic entity was never truly banished. Maybe this tour is just waking up. Dan's death is seen by many as the breaking point, but his friends have asked for space, for peace. They say he wouldn't want fear to overshadow his mission, and maybe that's true, but still the questions linger. The shadows don't let go that easily. After all of this, the crashes, the chaos, the whispers in the dark, you'd think it would be over, but no, it's not over. Tony's spirit has confirmed this is what Dan believed in, what Ed and Lorraine believed in. We're not stopping. Annabelle is scheduled to appear at the Maine Paranormal and Horror Convention, with more stops this fall in Illinois, Kentucky, and Scarefest in Lexington. And yes, people will show up. But the questions still hang in the air like smoke. Was this all coincidence? Or did something slip loose the moment the case opened? Are we witnessing the next chapter in haunted object lore as it happens? Because maybe this is the most haunted thing in this story isn't the doll inside the glass. Maybe it's us, our grief, our fear, our need to mythologize, to turn tragedy into tale, to turn mirrors into monsters. Let's really think about this. A tour linked to a 911 outage, a fatal crash, unexplained figures, and surges in the sudden death of its lead investigator is continuing by choice? So I'll ask, is this honoring Dan, or are we inviting something darker? Remember the warning. Don't take her out of that case. Well, someone did, and now we're watching it unfold. There are stories, and then there are warnings. And in the paranormal, when the veil is thin and the energy is real, you don't always get a second chance. Annabelle's tour continues. Will the strange events follow? Only time will tell. But if you're planning to see her, bring your salt, say your prayers, and whatever you do, don't mock the doll. All right, now, deep breaths. We've unraveled haunted headlines, walked the cursed trail of Annabelle's tour, and cracked open questions most people wouldn't dare whisper out loud. But before we wrap the EMF cords and cleanse the space, let's circle back to those trivia questions from earlier. Do you think you nailed them, or did Annabelle mess with your memory? Let's find out. All right, question number 1 was, according to Ed and Lorraine Warren, what should never be done with Annabelle the doll? Answer, she should never be removed from her protective case. Number 2, what reportedly happened to the 911 emergency system in Gettysburg during Annabelle's visit? Answer, it mysteriously went down. Number 3, what folklore mistake may have caused Sarah Woodruff and her children's spirits to become trapped in the Myrtles Plantation mirror? Answer, the mirror was not covered after their deaths. Number 4, in what U.S. city did Annabelle make headlines again in 2025 after reportedly causing disturbances at a haunted location? San Antonio, Texas. Number 5, what happened when someone tried to destroy the cursed 1940s fedora by burning it? The answer, it reappeared days later, wet and smelling of sulfur. Number 6, which haunted object in Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum did I feel drawn to during my visit? The answer, the debit box. Number 7, why is Busby's stoop chair no longer allowed to be sat in at the museum? Answer, too many people died after sitting in it. Number 8, what did Claudia from Pennsylvania name the room where she sealed her haunted Victorian doll? Answer, the nursery. Number 9, what eerie figure appeared in every photo taken with the haunted 35mm camera from Japan? Answer, a pale woman in the background. And last but not least, what is one of the most common reasons collectors say they keep haunted objects? Answer, responsibility, to keep others safe by containing them. And that's a wrap on tonight's paranormal challenge, where every answer pulled us deeper into the shadows and dared us to remember the cursed, the creepy, and the downright possessed. From dolls that doom to boxes that bite back, this wasn't just a quiz, it was a test of how much haunted history you've got locked in your brain. Did you score high? You're officially cleared to handle haunted heirlooms, but maybe just don't take any home. Did you miss a few? No shame. Some answers are best left buried until they aren't. All right, let's land this haunted tour bus. Tonight, we trace the dark trail left behind one of the most infamous haunted objects in the world, Annabelle. From unexplained power surges and shadow figures to the tragic death of Dan Rivera, we didn't just explore the stories, we asked the harder questions. What are we really awakening when we disturb the veil? And are we chasing history or tempting something that's better left sealed? Huge thanks to my ride or die night crew for hanging in the dark with me. Whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or just here for the eerie energy, you're the reason this show exists. The shadows are always more interesting with you in them. Let's give one last shout out to our top 3 gifters of the night. Coming in at number 3 is That One Guy. Number 2 is RS Rob. And number 1 is I Love You, Rosie. You guys, thanks for the gifts. Make sure you're favoriting them. Favorite everybody sitting on that list. Everybody in the chat, y'all just favor everybody. Drop everybody a favor here. We're all about showing some love. And we're going to keep the spirit going strong until next Sunday. And speaking of next Sunday, we're going to be going even deeper. I'll be cracking open a full segment on demonology. From the Book of Enoch to the Lesser Key of Solomon, fallen angels, ancient rituals, and the line between mythology and malevolence. If you thought cursed dolls were spooky, wait until we get into what's really lurking in those texts. My guess is to be determined, but you already know it'll be worth the summoning. So that's it for now. Thanks for venturing into the unknown with me tonight. Keep your senses sharp, your flashlight close, and your curiosity wide open. Sleep tight, dream strange, and remember, when the shadows whisper, Kraken's already listening. Thank you for daring to come into the unknown with me tonight. I really appreciate your gifts, but what means the most to me is your being here and showing your support. If you would like to be on the show, send me a message on IG. The link is in my bio. Please stay for the after show segment as I spend the next 30 minutes continuing to talk about what we covered in the show and answering any questions you may have regarding the paranormal field. I hope to see you all again next Sunday at 11 p.m. Eastern, where we will go back into the unknown. Have a great night and enjoy your week.